The government doesn't run on your taxes. That's the first lie you were told. Your labor isn't funding the country. It's being used as a collateral for a loan that can never be paid back. Your nation is no longer a sovereign power. It is a rented property and you are the asset that keep the lease active. You are inside the system. Now let's talk business. The landlord in the shadows. Imagine you own a house, you decide who enters, how the budget is spent, and the future looks like for your kids. But there is a catch. You don't actually own the deed. You are paying interest to a landlord who stays in the guest house and never leaves. This is the state of the modern nation. We've been taught to look at the president or the prime minister as the CEO. In reality, they are just the property managers, the real owners, the central banks. When a government needs money, whether for a war, a social program, or a bridge to nowhere, they don't just check the tax bucket. That bucket is usually empty. Instead, they issue a bond. A bond is just a fancy word for a debt contract. They hand this piece of paper to a central bank, and in exchange, the bank clicks a button and types digits into a computer. Since 1971, the world has operated on a system of pure faith. There is no gold, there is no silver. There is the only promise that you will work hard enough to pay for that money the bank created out of thin air today. But here is the loop. The government has to pay interest on that money. To pay the interest, they need more money, so they issue more bonds. This isn't a mistake in the system, it is the system. If the debt is never meant to be paid back, what is the actual point of the loop? You are the collateral. You might be wondering, if the money is fake, why do I have to pay taxes? Here is the invisible truth. Taxes aren't meant to fund the government. Taxes are meant to create a demand for the currency. You have to earn dollars or euros because the man with the guns will put you in a cage if you don't pay your taxes in the specific currency. But there is a darker layer. When a nation is in trillions of dollars of debt, the lender need a guarantee. They need to know the interest will keep flowing. That guarantee is your future productivity. You are the tenant of the state, and your lifetime of labor is the security deposit. Think about it. Every child born today is a developed nation arrives with a five-figure debt tag already tied in their name. You didn't sign for that loan. You didn't agree to those terms, but you are the one who will spend 40 years of life working to service the interest on it. The interest payment on US national debt now exceeds the entire defense budget. We aren't spending on the protection anymore. We are spending just to keep the landlord from evicting the entire economy. If the citizens are the collateral, what happens when the citizens can no longer produce enough to cover the interest? The great rent increase. The landlord has a problem. Eventually, the debt gets so high that the interest is impossible to pay through normal taxes. If they raised your taxes to 70 or 80%, you would revolt. You would take to the streets. So, they use a silent tax. They call it inflation. When the central bank prints more money to help the government pay its bills, the stack of cold hard cash in your pocket lose their value. The price of your eggs, your gas, and your rent goes up. You feel poorer because you are poorer. But the government doesn't mind. Why? Because they get to pay back their old debts with new, cheaper money. It's a massive transfer of wealth from your savings account to the bank's ledger. Inflation isn't an act of God or a glitch in the supply chain. It is a deliberate policy to devalue the debt of the ruling class at the expense of purchasing power. You are running faster and faster on a treadmill, but the floor is moving backward. You are working 60 hours a week just to maintain the lifestyle your parents had to on 40 hours. You aren't falling behind because you are lazy. You are falling behind because the rent on your life just went up and you weren't invited to the meeting where they decided it. But wait, if this system is no fragile, why hasn't it collapsed yet? The infinite loop. The system stays alive through a process called rolling over the debt. When a government's loan comes due, they don't pay it off. They just take out a new loan to pay the old loans. It's like using a MasterCard to pay off a Visa, then using a Amex to pay the MasterCard. In the real world, you would be bankrupt in 6 months. In the world of sovereign debt, this is called fiscal policy. The banks love this. Why? Because as long as the nation is in a debt, the bank has leverage, they can dictate policy, they can influence laws, they can ensure that the system always favors the creditor over the debtor. Nations are no longer governed by the will of the people. They are governed by the yield of the bond. If a government tries to do something the landlord doesn't like returning to a gold standard or cutting off the central bank, the landlord simply raises interest rates, crashes the currency, and chokes the nation until it falls back in line. You are living in a rented reality. Your house, your car, your savings. You are all just temporary permissions granted by a financial structure that owns the air you breathe. Is there a way cut, or are we the first generation in history to be born as a permanent digital serfs? The digital cage. The final stage of the infinite loop is coming. It's called CBDC, Central Bank Digital Currencies. Right now, the system is slightly leaky. You can take cash out of the bank, you can buy gold, you can trade the things the landlord can't see. But in a world of digital currency, the landlord sees every transaction. If you try to stop paying the rent, if you try to opt out of the debt loop, they can simply turn off your ability to spend. The infinite loop become an infinite cage. This isn't a conspiracy theory, it's a balance sheet. The math doesn't lie. The debt is too high to ever be paid, which means the only way to keep the system from exploding is to exert total control over the collateral. And remember, you are the collateral. The final warning. Listen too carefully. The world isn't what they taught you in civic class. You don't live in a democracy or a republic in the traditional sense. You live in a debtocracy. The sovereign debt infinite loop is designed to keep nations in a state of perpetual tenancy. As long as you believe the solution is to vote for the other guy, you are missing the point. Both guys work for the same landlord. Your only defense is to stop being easy collateral, understand the game, diversify your asset outside of the controlled loop, educate yourself on the history of money, because those who don't understand it are condemned to be rented by those who do. The choice is yours. Stay a tenant or stay looking for the exit. What system should we decode next? Tell me in the comment section.